who's going to tell us about Mr. Can You Spare Some Change?
Okay, thank you. Good morning to everybody tuning in. It's a busy time, so I have a lot to say, but I'm going to speak fast. It won't take all that long, but I think there's some important ideas I'll try to express on this possibly misleading title, Mr. Can You Spare Some Change? The Penetrating Power of Pesach. I want to start with trying to understand why there is such an intense, almost obsessive focus on matzah on the holiday of Pesach. So much so that although there are several names for Pesach, Chag HaAviv, Zman Cherutenu, and more, we almost exclude, and Pesach, of course, which is colloquially used, but the real kind of literal name of this holiday is Chag HaMatzot, and that's how it's referred to in many, many different places, obviously focusing on the centrality of the matzah. Matzah is the only biblically required food in the entire year. We Jews love to eat, and our holidays contain, almost all of them, contain some kind of special food, right? We have Hamantashen on Pesach, we have Livivot, we have donuts, Sufganiyot on Hanukkah, we have maybe have kreplach on Purim as well, and lots of different foods throughout the year that are important to us, but those are customary. They're not obligatory. Matzah is the only obligatory food. Of course, at one time there was a second food, and that was the Korban Pesach, which we don't have today. And speaking of the Korban Pesach, by the way, wine, I'm not counting as a food. We also are obligated to say Kiddush, but that's not a food, that's a liquid. So speaking of the Korban Pesach, it's interesting and somewhat illustrating that when we don't have the Korban Pesach anymore, so we have to have some food that we eat at the end of our Seder. We have that tradition that we close the Seder eating the Afikomen, which at one time was the Korban Pesach, so that the taste of the lamb would stay in our mouths. It's probably a good taste to have, for at least for many people. But then, of course, we don't have the Korban Pesach anymore. So the rabbis had to think, okay, what can we substitute for the Korban Pesach to end our Seder? And then they thought and they came up, wow, with such a revolutionary idea, let's eat more matzah. You'd think that they could have come up with something a bit more creative, but no, they decided you've been eating matzah throughout the Seder, continue to eat it and make that the last thing that you eat. So I think that's kind of an indication that matzah is what is completely on their mind before, during, and after the Seder is the matzah. So I want to try to understand what is the significance of the matzah and what makes it so special. So there are many answers to this question. One answer is that the matzah is unique in that it is both a symbol of slavery and also a symbol of freedom, right? It represents the poor bread, the lechem ani that the slaves ate, very skinny food and something that is plentiful and yet not very colorful. At the same time, the matzah represents freedom in that we were in a rush to join Hashem and to follow him into the desert, lech tech acharai be'eretz lo zruah, that we would come after him no matter what was in store for us. And that's a symbol of freedom. And indeed, when we have to choose at the Seder table, whether this is slavery or freedom, indicated by whether we lean or not. So the ruling is that, yes, we do lean, that although many people mistakenly think the primary quality or the primary image of matzah is a symbol of slavery. The rabbis say otherwise. No, it is a symbol of freedom, and that's why we lean, just like we do when eating the meal or the arba kosot, as opposed to the maror. So that's one aspect of matzah. Another aspect of matzah is that, as we said, it represents speed, that matzah is something we do quickly. Everybody asks the question, on Parshat HaChodesh, we read about the fact that already on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so Hashem gave us the commandment about the matzah, so it wasn't as if he sprung it on us at the very last moment. We knew about it 2 weeks in advance. We could have made that matzah, and it's not like we didn't have time to let the bread, the dough rise. We had time. We had 2 weeks. Even the worst cook could make it in 2 weeks. So, but nevertheless, we were told that the process of matzah, the formula for matzah, is one that must be done with speed. And we see speed represented. There's a whole shir in and of itself, which I'm not going to do, but we see many allusions to it. We left Egypt, says the Torah, b'chipazon, very quickly. There is an element of speed that is connected somehow to Pesach, because speed, in short, represents enthusiasm, excitement, that when you are on the verge of doing something you really want to do, whether it's opening a birthday present or redeeming your winning lottery ticket, you do it quickly. You don't wait. You're not lethargic. And that is the way in which we should be performing mitzvot, with enthusiasm, with speed. Sometime in future years, hopefully, there's really have a whole share on this idea of speed. But that's clearly one of the ideas of a matzah. And just one more idea among many is the concept of that matzah represents holding back, discipline. Instead of letting the dough rise, you stop it in progress and you're left with matzah. You control yourself, as it were, and you make something that is not as fluffy or perhaps even as delectable as would be onion rolls or anything, made of, goes the full route of baking something. The idea is that matzah is synonymous with discipline. And on this first Chag of the year, Hashem is trying to inculcate in us the necessity to have discipline. Most of the Torah is about discipline. You want to eat something, but you have to wait. Hold yourself back to check. Is it kosher or not? Am I milchik or fleshik? Did I make the right bracha? And virtually all of the laws of the Torah involve some sense of discipline. I would like to have an intimate relationship with this person. Can I? Is it permissible? Is it the right time of the month? Etc. All of these are forms of holding back, which is something that makes us godly and holy. And that is also synonymous or emblematic of the matzah. But I want to talk about something else. All of those are good ideas, and you can bring that up at your Seder table, but I want to talk about something else. And it always starts with a question. And the question, why did Hashem, the Torah, not simply tell us, okay, we're going to commemorate leaving Egypt, and we're going to give you one of the commandments, have a Seder, have whatever you eat at the Seder, have the matzah, and that's it. Have one day where you devote it to remembering about the Exodus, just like you have one day for Purim, maybe also how you have one day for Shavuot. Eat as much matzah as you like. You're commanded, you must eat a certain amount of kazait, but eat all you want. And that's it, over and done with. Why do I have not only 7 days where I'm not having any chametz? You don't have to eat matzah on all those days, but presumably you will. But it's not just about that. It's about a complete turnover of your whole lifestyle for a week. You have to, and earlier, because you're preparing, you're cleaning, you're getting rid of all the chametz. You're, as we say in our house, we clean once a year, whether we need it or not. And you're changing your dishes, you're learning new recipes, you're turning the house topsy-turvy, and you're koshering the kalim, the pots and the pans. There's a whole rigmarole here. As we'd say in French, a whole balagan. It's really Polish word, by the way, that we're doing when Pesach comes around. Why did the rabbis have to institute such a comprehensive chag, take an entire week out of our lives in order to, in a sense, restructure ourselves and around this concept of chametz and matzah? I think it could have been enough simply to say, here's the day that we left Egypt, go ahead and eat matzah, and that would be enough. The rabbi said, no, it's much, much more comprehensive than that. Why? So we're Jewish, so we have to try to answer this question with another question. And this takes us back to the story at the beginning of the entire saga of the Exodus, when Moshe is asked or told that he's going to be the leader. Now we know that Moshe was a reluctant hero, to say the least. He did not want the job in the worst way, and he tried to get out of it with a dozen different excuses. And he pleaded before God on a number of levels. He said to Hashem, and we see this, of course, right at the beginning of the story in Parshat Shemot. He said to Hashem, who am I to go before Paro? I haven't lived in Egypt for 60 years, right? He left Egypt when he was 20. He's now 80. He's lived in Midian. And he said, when I was there, I was a wanted man. There was a price on my head. So who am I? How can I go before Paro and go back there? And of course, Hashem says to him in very simple language, I will go with you. Don't worry about that. I'll be right there with you. Okay, says Moshe, fine. But, I'm not an orator. I don't know how to speak. We know that Moshe was, kaved sfatayim. We're not sure what his speech defect was, and there are many opinions on that. Some say he stuttered. Some say he talked too slow. Others say he talked too fast. Others say that he didn't speak the language of the street. Others say that there's certain letters like a mem or a pei that he couldn't pronounce. We're not sure because there's so many opinions that automatically means we really don't know. So he says to Hashem, I'm not a speaker. And so Hashem replies to him, don't worry about that. Aaron will speak for you. So good try, Moshe, but you can't get out of it that way. And then he says to Hashem, the people don't recognize you. I'm going to speak in your name. They don't know who you are. So Hashem says, you tell them that I'm the same God that was with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And they have a tradition. Yes, it's been a long time. We're talking about 2 centuries in Egypt, but there's a tradition. They'll remember that. And so it's not like they've never heard of me. And then Moshe finally says to him, okay, true, but they won't believe that you spoke to me, that I spoke to you. How will I convince them that you actually appeared to me and you have this ability to do what you say you're going to do? Some of this, the rabbis say, went a little bit too far, and Moshe was to some extent punished. We'll talk about that in a second, by having this doubt about the Jewish people. But Hashem says to him, okay, I hear you, Moshe, and I'm going to give you something which is going to convince them that indeed you did speak to me, and I did promise to take them out, and I have the power to do so. Moshe says, what is that? And Hashem says, I will give you 3 what I call pocket miracles. You use these miracles, tricks, if you will, and you show them that you spoke to me and I have power. What are the 3 pocket miracles? So the first one, and we know them, the first is he takes his staff, turns it into a snake. He throws it on the ground and it starts to wriggle around like a snake. And then when he grabs it, it stiffens and turns back into a stick or a staff again. Okay, that's impressive. Hashem says, probably because Moshe prodded him and said, well, the Jews, they're a hard sell. They're not just going to believe one thing. So he says, okay, then I'll give you another. Take your hand, put it inside your shirt. When you remove it, it's becoming leprous. Clearly, it's withered, the skin coming off. And then show it to them, put it back in your shirt, pull it out, and it's a healthy hand once again. Okay, says Moshe, what else have you got? And then Hashem says, okay, I'll give you a 3rd little miracle to do. Take some water, throw it down on the ground, and watch as it turns to blood. These are the 3 miracles, so to speak, that Hashem gives to Moshe. And there's lots of significance about them. The snake evokes the idea of Gan Eden, or possibly even slander, when, as we said, Moshe was perhaps going overboard in, no pun intended, that the Jews wouldn't believe, etc. And lots of different symbolisms to these 3 miracles. The water into blood, it's indication that Egypt is prosperous because of its water, and it will turn to blood. And this, of course, becomes the first plague, and all kinds of things represented there. But I want to suggest that there is a single idea, a common denominator that connects these different things that Moshe is shown and given to put before the people. It's not only to convince Moshe, or to give Moshe the power to convince the people that Hashem is truly a God who can do anything for them, but it has a common denominator, and that is expressed in one word, and that word is change. Moshe is presenting before the people items that significantly change. When that which is inanimate, the staff, turns into something that is alive, the snake. When that which is sick becomes healthy, or vice versa. And certainly the water into blood, that in a sense, both of these are the most important liquids. We need water to survive, and our bodies, our majority of is liquid blood. This, all 3 are a symbol of change. Moshe is trying to inculcate and to demonstrate to the people, you can change. The most difficult hurdle, or initial hurdle, of Moshe is a psychological one, is the idea of convincing the people that they do not have to remain slaves. They can change from the status of the lowest on the social ladder of Egypt and return to the elite holy nation, the Am Segula of Am Yisrael. And that's not simple. It's something that Moshe will grapple with, and that will plague us, no pun intended, throughout our 40 years in the desert. This idea of self-esteem and somehow changing our opinion of ourselves and our ability to alter our lives. The Pasuk says that Hashem says to Moshe, I want you to take the people mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, from out of the burden of Egypt. And the rabbis, with the play on words, sivlot connects not only to burden, but to sovlanut, tolerance, that he says to Moshe, take them out of this idea of being tolerant and accepting of the state they're in. As deplorable as it was, we see that the people more than once say to Moshe, oh, if only you hadn't taken us out of Egypt and we could be living, in what they sentimentally portray as some kind of paradise. It's a syndrome that I call, I've grown accustomed to your mace, that the people are saying, I'm okay with being a slave. It's not a bad life. I can live with it. I can tolerate it. And Moshe is told, you have to do whatever it takes to convince them, no, you cannot tolerate it. This is not where you belong. There's a better life ahead for you. You can change. As difficult as it may seem, after a century of slavery, you can reverse the situation and you will become the power, and they will have to listen to you and not vice versa. This was Moshe's primary task. He had to somehow convince the people that they can change. Pesach is about change, the ability to change our behavior, to change lethargy into enthusiasm, to upgrade our sense of faith. Chazal tell us that on the night of Leil Seder, whatever you wish you want in your life and you want to change, Hashem will make it come true. This is what Chazal say. If you're sincere and it's something you want to change about yourself, whatever it may be, you want to become someone who concentrates more in prayer, who maybe is involved volunteering, who does chesed, who studies, adds a little bit study Torah, and you think, I can't do it. If you want to do it, you will be given the power to change. That's what Pesach is about. And that is why, to come back to our original question, that is why it's not enough to simply be told on this one day, eat a matzah. Remember what the slaves ate. Think about the saga of the Exodus. No, that's not enough. You have to have a complete and comprehensive change, a change of your lifestyle, of your diet, of perhaps it's a time when you're more concentrating on your own family because you're maybe not going to other people's to eat during that week. You're changing your house. It's a complete and comprehensive 1 week long change, because a week is a long period of time. You couldn't do this in a day. People are always saying at the end of the week, oh, I just schlepped my dishes down for Pesach. Now we have to schlep them back. But yeah, it's a schlep. But it was important to do that in order to make a change. You have to be convinced that just as you changed your house for Pesach and made it kosher lePesach with all of the work that was entailed in it, you can do the same with your life. And you can change your pattern of behavior if you really want to. That's what the rabbis were trying to inculcate in this 7-day or 8-day Chag of Pesach. We have this idea of 4 cups because, for many reasons, but the main one is Arba Lishonot Shel Geula, the 4 expressions of redemption. But some want to say, Al Tikra Lishonot, don't say expressions Lishonot, but slightly change it, Lishanot, to change. That Geula comes when we change our patterns of behavior and we somehow move to that higher level. We know that when we talk on a literal level as to why Pesach, this is a philosophical level, why Pesach is 7 days, but on a more logical or literal level, it's 7 days because on that seventh day, something else occurred. The first day was the miracle of the Exodus, but the seventh day is the miracle of Kriyat Yamsuf. And so since that happened 7 days later on the seventh day, so we put that at the other end of the bookends, one side, the Exodus, one side, Kriyat Yamsuf. That's true, but also following the theme that we've developed, the ultimate change and the ultimate evidence that is shown to Am Yisrael of absolutely miraculous and cataclysmic change comes on the seventh day when that sea splits. So again, just as the staff turned to a snake or the water turned to blood, we see God manipulates nature. So against the force of gravity, the water rises and stays in its place as we walk through on dry land to freedom. And everything changes. In that moment, we go from the depth of despair, fearing that Paro is going to finish us off and that we're going to be massacred as we stand trapped between the Paro and the deep Reed Sea. And that's the end of us. We go from those depths of despair to the heights of glory. The Gemara says that the people who stood, the simplest person who stood at the edge of the Yam Suf and watched this miracle saw God revealed more than all the prophets in history. This revelation was the most momentous in all of history. And we established the most dramatic change. Suddenly, they were the ones who were at the bottom, literally, and we were the ones at the top. And they were the ones who were mourning and moaning, and we were the ones who were singing the Shirah, this expression, this kind of almost, instinctual, and this outpouring of emotion to sing the Shirah was an indication that indeed we can change. We did change. Vayaminu b'Hashem u'Moshe avdo, and then we really believed. Now people ask, why does it say Hashem and Moshe in the same sentence? We believed in Hashem. What is Moshe's part? Moshe's part was he was the one trying to convince us all that time, you can change. And this is a great moment for Moshe. Now they say, Moshe, now we believe you. After all we've seen, we understand, yes, we can change. And Kriyat Yamsuf is that moment of transformation that we turn from a slave nation to on our way back to being the Am Segula, the nation, the chosen nation of Hashem that is going to lead the world and not be directed and ordered around by the world. And so the overall idea of matzah and this whole 7-day period of Pesach is a lesson in Musar, that we have the ability to change. We're not perfect. We all have places to go. We all have room for improvement. And Pesach is the impetus that says to us, just as you changed your lifestyle for a week, you can change everything about yourself in order to come closer to Hashem and ultimately to be Zocha, just like the people were at the Yam Suf, to have this overwhelming understanding now embedded in our souls that we are indeed this nation that Hashem chose to lead the world on a moral and spiritual level, that we can do it. And it begins with each and every one of us making a change in our own lives so that we can come closer to that great ideal. to wish everybody a very spiritually uplifting and meaningful, not only Seder, but also Chag HaPesach, and we come back afterwards, and that we really have changed somewhat for the better. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, and everyone should have a Chag Kasher B'Sameach. Thank you to Rabbi Lieberman, and I hope to see you all again soon on Zoom or in person.
Thank you so much. I have to say, you definitely had me there with the title. I had no idea that that was coming. Did not see that one coming at all. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rabbi Weiss. I'm sure that Rabbi Weiss will be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Anybody got any questions or comments before we sign off?
Just want to say thank you, Rabbi Weiss. It was a pleasure to listen to you. And I wish you well too for Pesach and the Chag.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll send the recording out of this in due course. What's on next? Tomorrow evening, we have the question and answer session with Rav Yuval and myself. Wednesday, I'm doing a shiur on the amazing story of the ever-expanding olive, how much you have to eat and don't have to eat on the Seder Kazayit. And Thursday evening, the Dikat Chametz. Friday morning, we will be having a burning session outside of the shul. And there will be Hagalat Kelim, kashering of vessels outside the Sephardi shul. I'm trying to establish exactly when that is. I'm struggling actually to find that information at the moment, but as soon as I find it, I will send a message out on the various WhatsApp groups. Probably you'll all get the message 4 or 5 times because I send it to every single group that I can think of. But anyway, at least you'll have it. And until then, I wish you all a very good day. Thank you again, Rabbi Weiss, for those inspiring words. And we should all have an inspiring and life-changing Pesach. Thank you so much.
Chag Sameach. Thanks to everybody. Toda.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.